headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.
It's extraordinary. The criticism of these truckers has been, off the scale from the likes of the Canadian Premier, Justin Trudeau, who's accused them of being, racist, God knows whatist, everyist. As far as I can tell, no evidence whatsoever. It's basically a bunch of white supremacist truckers who are trying to take over the country, as opposed to people, and anti-vax, as opposed to people who are just saying they believe in bodily autonomy and freedom.
Yeah, it's reframing the debate, and it's sleight of hand from Trudeau. He seems to be quite happy with a lot of other protests. He was supporting the farmers' protest in India, Black Lives Matter, and rightly so. People have the right to protest, but he's reframing this one because he's threatened by it. Now, that is not the sign of a self-styled liberal, progressive, free leader. He's threatened by these truckers. He's framing it in the wrong way, and actually he's conveniently ignoring something that's emerged over the last few days, where the truckers are giving free food to the homeless in Ottawa. Why is he not talking about that? Now, he's coming across as someone who's running scared from this, but he's also not coming across as the very thing he claims to be. And that is one of the world's most progressive leaders.
Yeah, apart from every single party he appeared to attend for about 10 years when he went in blackface, rather bizarrely. But it's interesting, it's not just truckers now, it's farmers, it's cowboys. It's just extraordinary, the number of people. He said this was a tiny minority, of nasty racists. There seems to be an awful lot of support for these people. We know that, was it almost $10 million being raised on GoFundMe for these truckers to help support them. And then we had the extraordinary situation where GoFundMe basically said, we're not going to give that money to people. That was I think if GoFundMe, I think they will be paying the penalty of that for quite a long time.
Yeah, it's not exactly good PR for GoFundMe. I don't know who thought that through. But it's also, the wings of this protest are spreading. There's movements springing up all over the world. There's ones in Australia, there's minor ones in the UK, but there's also a European freedom trucker movement across Europe where they're intending to go to Brussels. I think it's on the 14th of February and say Happy Valentine's Day to various officials in Brussels. Now, one of the great things about this truckers movement is it's visual. It's the optics of it. I've seen the images, not just of the truckers, but you've now got cowboys coming across the plains, and you've also got the farmers. But fundamentally, the message is important. It should not be framed as anti-vax. There might be one or two within that protest who are, but generally it's about a fight to reclaim all freedoms and make sure those freedoms are passed on to their children. That is fundamentally as liberal as they come. And Trudeau, who claims to be a liberal, is raging against the very thing he claims to be.
And that's the very bizarre thing, that some of the countries that I've always held up as beacons of, liberal values, like Australia and New Zealand and Canada and America, that actually, well, some parts of America, they have been the ones who've been clamping down on some fundamental freedoms so quickly, very quickly. The vaccine passports, mandatory jabs, make life difficult for, and France as well. Liberté, égalité, fraternité. I haven't seen much of that in France in recent years. A lot of the places we saw as beacons of liberal values, they have been the worst offenders, going full China in this remark. Well, why do you think that is?
It is extraordinary, isn't it? I think, it gives off the impression that basically their claims to be liberal and progressive are bogus. Because if they are, they would welcome the very things they're trying to clamp down, and that's freedom of expression and freedom of speech. So it gives off the impression that the governments and the individuals at the head of those governments are not doing the very thing they say is on their own tin. They're clamping down on the right to expression, the right for freedom of choice. They're also putting in laws that are, quite frankly, off the scale authoritarian. Yeah. And they're getting called out by the people on this, and they're frightened. And yet what they're doing is doubling down and suppressing even more. Trudeau's a perfect example with the truckers, where he's framing the debate in a repugnant way, rather than telling the truth about why those truckers did. Now, if Trudeau had any gumption and any courage at all, he would listen to the truckers. Yeah. He would actually talk with the truckers, but instead he's running scared and he's trying to smear them. That is not the ideology of someone who's supposed to be liberal. No,
and again, you defeat bad ideas with good ideas by having that debate. It seems to me the idea, the desire to suppress opposition to lockdown policies, mandatory vaccines, vaccine passports and all of that is fundamentally based on the idea that if once people know that other people think this is all madness and wrong, then those things, that idea spreads. It's spreading very, very quickly now. I have a funny feeling in about a year's time, it's not going to be anyone who supported lockdowns, but we will remember who did, won't we? James Melville, been a fantastic campaigner against lockdowns and for freedom and just the basic sort of rights that we used to just have in this country and take for granted. Thank you very much to James Melville for joining us.
Good talk.
Hot talk. Bold talk. Talk radio.
Listen on your smart speaker.
Watch it live on your smart TV.
The world headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.